Hi everyone, welcome to the class 2 of the unit solid state. In the previous class, we have started with the introduction for the unit solid state, and we completed with the classification of the solids as crystalline and amorphous solids. We have seen the differences between the crystalline and amorphous in detail. Now, in the present class, we'll continue with the classification of crystalline solids based on the constituent particles present in it. So, as well as the binding force, so which is holding the constituent particles. Along with that, we'll try to start with the arrangement of the crystal points, that is the lattice sites. So, with the fundamental information regarding the arrangement of constituent particles as crystal lattice and unit cell, we'll try to discuss in the present class. Now, if we take the crystalline solids, so based on the number of the particles present in it, in the form of based on the nature of constituent particles, and based on the nature of binding forces between the constituent particles, the crystalline solids are classified into four main types. So they are ionic solids, metallic solids, covalent or network solids, and molecular solids. Ionic, metallic, covalent, and molecular solids. Again, molecular solids so may be of non-polar molecular solids or polar molecular solids or hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So this concept is very important in understanding the solids in detail, because majority of the solids what we are going to learn will fall under the crystalline solids of any of the type as ionic, metallic, covalent or molecular solids. So the knowledge of classification of crystalline solids will help us in identifying, so with respect to the constituent particles in it, what is the binding forces between the constituent particle. With the suitable examples, we'll try to understand it. So few simple properties also we'll try to relate to remember the respective type of the solids. Now we'll try to learn with the following information. So we'll try to concentrate for each type of the solid. So what will be its constituent particle? Then, so after knowing what is the constituent particle of the respective crystalline type of the solid, what is the binding or attractive force holding those particles in the solid? Then few simple properties of that we'll try to relate with example. So now we'll start with the first one. So we'll take ionic solids. As the name indicates, so ionic solids will have the constituent particles as ions. So ions will be the constituent particles, that is cations and anions of the respective ionic compound. So will act as the constituent particle in the case of ionic solids. And between the ions, we know that the electrostatic force of attraction or Coulombic force of attraction so will be there, so as a solid structure to form. So hence, so it is Coulombic or electrostatic force of attraction. Now, as we all know that, so ionic compounds, so they are all hard in nature, all the ionic compounds are hard in nature. And so if we consider few more interesting information, so majority of these, so they are brittle. That is, the crystals of ionic compounds, so they are generally shining in nature. So they are hard, so as well as so they are brittle. And if we take the electrical conductivity of the respective ionic solids, so ionic solids will take in the solid form as well as in the molten form, we'll try to discuss. Now, ionic compounds, if we take in the solid form, they are insulators. So they will not conduct electricity. So in the solid form, so because of absence of free ions, because of absence of free ions in the solid state, so ionic compounds cannot able to conduct electricity. Whereas, so if the ionic compound is taken in the molten form or in solution form, that means either you melt the ionic solid, so in its molten form you take the molten mass there, or if you dissolve in a suitable solvent in getting a solution, so in that molten form or in the solution form, so ionic compounds are said to be conductors. That means they conduct electricity, so in molten form or in the solution form. So this information explains, so either in the molten form or in the solution form, we are going to see the free ions formed from the ionic compound, whatever the cation and anion, so from the given solid, in the molten form or in the solution form, will be present as a free ion. That free ion is responsible for conductivity of the solid. So as a solid, if we take, so for example, NaCl in solid phase, if we take, NaCl will not conduct any electricity. Whereas if you dissolve NaCl in water or if you melt the NaCl, so that solution of NaCl so will allow the passage of electricity. So hence, so it is a conductor because of presence of free ions. So this will be the interesting information and you can expect it as a 1 mark question here. So when ionic compounds or ionic solids conduct electricity. So ionic compounds conduct electricity only in their molten form or in the solution form. Whereas in the solid form, ionic solids are insulators. So any ionic compound, you can give it as example. So for example, the commonly known one common salt, we can use NaCl. So we can consider zinc sulfide, ZnS. We can take potassium sulfate, K2SO4. We can take calcium fluoride, sodium aluminum fluoride, etc. So any ionic compound you can give it as example to learn. Now we'll move on to the next type of crystalline solid, the second type. So we'll try to learn with metallic solids. Okay, so from the name, so in the metallic solids, so here we need to understand how a solid of metal is formed. So generally, whatever the metal if you take, so it will be with respective ionic form as a cation. So metal ion surrounded by X electrons, so that will be generally 1 to 3. A metal ion, so positively charged metal ion surrounded by 1 to 3 electrons. So this will be considered as sea of electrons. So this is according to a model called electron sea model. So that we do not have in this NCERT syllabus. We can get the information regarding this if you are really interested. So how metallic solids are formed. So whatever the metal if we take, so the metal ions of that based on the tendency of the metal to lose the electron, its respective cationic form surrounded by the valence electron. So whatever the valence electron representing the valency of the metal, so surrounding to it. So that forms a sea of electrons. so with positively charged centers. So these positively charged centers is referred to as kernels. So these positively charged kernels surrounded by a mobile sea of electrons, so will be considered as the constituent particles. So in general, so we can take the positively charged metal ions, so which are surrounded by a sea of electrons or mobile electrons. So there will be more number of electrons from each constituent kernel particles as a positively charged metal ions will be there in the respective solid. As a result, so these free ions are responsible for high electrical conductivity of metals when compared to any other type of solids. If we take, so these metal ions so are held by a strong nature of a covalent bond, which is a special type of covalent bond called as metallic bonds. The metallic bond so is going to hold the various constituent particles in a metal of a given solid. And if we consider the important properties of metallic solids, so as the mobile sea of electrons surrounds the metal ions in any given metallic solids, so all the metallic solids are very good conductors. So if we take the important properties first, so all the metallic solids are hard, so they are malleable. That means they can be drawn into thin sheets. All the metallic solids are ductile, refers to they can be drawn into thin wires. Malleability refers to making the metal solid into a thin sheet. Ductile property is the metallic solid, so to draw into a thin wires. So that ability is exhibited by all the metallic solids as they are malleable and ductile. So along with that, the conductivity aspect if we take, so metallic solids are very good conductors of both heat and electricity. So they are conductors. So why the conductivity of metallic solids if it is seen, so if we take the free electrons or mobile electrons present around the metal ions in the metallic solid is responsible for its conductivity. So they are very good conductors. So any metal you can give it as example. So you can give iron, copper, zinc, magnesium, silver, etc. Any metallic solid, any metal can be taken as the example for this. So now we'll move on to the third type of the crystalline solid. The third type is covalent solids, or can also call it as network solids. Covalent solids or network solids. So here, if we take the constituent particles, so covalent or network solids will have atoms as their constituent particles. The constituent particles will be atoms. So these are generally non-metallic atoms. The covalently bonded non-metallic atoms so will act as the constituent particles in the covalent or in network solids. So if we take the bond, so between the atoms of non-metallic nature, the covalent bond which is formed as a mutual sharing of electrons, so will hold the constituent particle in the entire crystal or in the solid. So all the covalent solids, so they are hard, but there are some example of covalent solids which are soft. So example, you can consider graphite. So which we can take it as an exception. So except graphite, so remaining all the covalent solids, they are generally hard. And So if we take the conductivity property, so all the covalent solids which are hard in nature, so they are all insulators, so they will not conduct electricity. But so there is an exception with the same soft nature of the covalent solid, graphite. So graphite is the only conductor of covalent solids. It's the only example of the covalent solid, so which is conducting in nature. So remaining all the covalent solids are insulators. All the covalent solids are insulators, whereas graphite so is a conductor, because here the carbon in graphite is in sp2 hybridization. So due to that sp2 hybridization, so one valence shell electron of each carbon as a constituent particle so will be mobile in nature. So that free electron, due to its hybridization, is responsible for conductivity. So examples, so we can take any covalently bonded molecules as example here. It is SiO2, where silicon and oxygen atoms act as constituent particles. So SiO2 is actually quartz. Then silicon carbide, again silicon and carbon act as constituent particles. Carbon, so allotropic forms we can take for carbon. Diamond and graphite can be given as example. Aluminium nitride can be taken, so where aluminium and nitrogen as constituent non-metallic atoms. So nitrogen as a non-metallic, but aluminium is a metallic, but also it is, so it acts as a covalent solid. And the carbon, the major allotropic form of carbon, that is graphite. So all these covalently bonded examples. Not only this, you can take any suitable example. So where the non-metallic atoms acts as constituent particle, an exception you can take it as aluminium nitride. Now we'll move with respect to the next fourth one, a very important one, so which is having three important types in it, so which are molecular solids. Molecular solids. As the name indicates, the molecules will act as the constituent particles. The molecules completely will act as constituent particle, and between the molecules we know that the attracting forces will be weak van der Waals forces. Either it may be London forces or dispersion forces or induced dipole interactions or dipole interactions or a special type of a strong dipole interaction hydrogen bonds. So that we are going to have it as subtypes. So we'll try to consider the first as the non-polar molecular solids. So if we take the non-polar molecular solids, so here the constituent particles will be either noble gas atoms such as helium, neon, etc., or molecules of non-polar covalent bonds, or we can say it as non-polar molecules. So if we take such example, any diatomic molecule you can take, any diatomic molecule, so can be considered as a non-polar molecule. So such solids can be taken. For example, if we take direct noble gases, we can take argon, helium, neon, etc. Or any diatomic solids, hydrogen, nitrogen, chlorine, iodine, etc. in solid form. So in the solid form can be taken as example of the non-polar molecular solids. As we know that, so between any diatomic molecules, So the bond will be equally shared from the bonded atoms. So the shared pair of electrons belongs equally from the bonded atoms. And the nature of the chemical bond, if we see, so the dipole moment is zero, hence it is a non-dipole molecule. So or it is a non-polar molecule. So that we are going to see. And we know that between the two non-polar molecules, so the only attractive force which is possible is the weak van der Waals forces. It is the London forces or dispersion forces. The weak van der Waals force, London forces or dispersion forces will be the attractive force formed between the particles. And if we observe the properties of such non-polar solids, so all the molecular solids are soft in nature. So except hydrogen bonded, so non-polar and polar molecular solids, so they are soft in nature. So and all are insulators. All the molecular solids in their solid form, so they are insulators. That means they do not conduct heat and electricity. And if we consider the melting point information, the previously discussed three types of the crystalline solids, that is ionic, metallic, or covalent. So they will have high melting point. So whereas molecular solids will have low melting point. Similarly, we'll consider another type of molecular solids, so which are polar molecular solids. Polar molecular solids. As the name indicates, the polar molecules will be the constituent particles. The constituent particles will be the polar molecules. That means the molecule in which there is a permanent dipole moment in it, such as H2O, that is ice we can take, or any suitable polar molecule in the solid form, we can take it as a polar molecule. But ice we cannot take here because it is having a special dipole-dipole interaction hydrogen bond. Apart from that, we can prefer any other polar molecules. For example, if we take HCl in the solid form, SO2 in the solid form, so they are all polar molecules. So there will be a permanent dipole moment between the molecule. That is, in the molecule, the bond is having a permanent polarity. As a result, between the two polar molecules, the attractive force formed will be, so we know that it is dipole-dipole interactions. So this we learned in states of matter in detail. You can recall the information. Dipole-dipole interaction will hold the polar molecules together. And if we observe the properties, so like non-polar, so they are soft, they are insulators. Again, all the molecular solids, so they have low melting point. Now, if we observe the last type of molecular solid, it is hydrogen bonded molecular solids. Hydrogen bonded molecular solids, if we take, so here we are going to see the molecules as a special type of polar molecules. Again, the constituent particles will be polar molecules, so in which hydrogen is bonded to any of the highest three electronegative elements, N, O, or F. Hydrogen bonded to any of the three highest electronegative elements, N, O, or F. So we'll take the example of hydrogen fluoride in solid form. H2O will be the best example. The solid form of water, so which is ice, can be taken. So the constituent particles will be the hydrogen bonded polar molecules. So and the bond between the molecules will be a special type of dipole-dipole interaction, hydrogen bond. Hydrogen bonded molecular solids, so they are hard because of strong intermolecular force, that is due to hydrogen bond in this case. So again, they are insulators. As we know, all the molecular solids, so they are insulators. Again, they have low melting point. Now this is in brief. So what about the types of the crystalline solids? So in brief. So hope the information is clear so you can understand so clearly. If you observe the previous case, so ionic solids, metallic solids, covalent solids, so they all have high melting points. So try to concentrate what are the constituent particles and try to focus on the example as well as the binding force. So follow these points very clearly to remember. So first concentrate what will be the constituent particles in it. Then what is the force holding the constituent particles in the solid, and with an example you try to prefer. Then after the information is clear, so you try to add the weightage for remembering the type, so with few of its properties. So majority of the information names itself it will give. Ionic solids, ions acts as constituent particles. Metallic solids, the positively charged metal ions acts as a constituent particles. Covalent solids, atoms which are held by covalent bonds will act as constituent particles. Ionic solids, ionic bond will be the attractive force. Metallic solids, metallic bond. Covalent solids, covalent bond will be the attractive force. If you take in the molecular, so non-polar interactions are London forces or induced dipole interaction. Polar solids, it is dipole interaction. Hydrogen bonded molecular solids, as the name itself it gives, so it is hydrogen bonded. Constituent particles in all the cases in simple you can write it as molecules. If you can remember exactly, you can write so noble gases or non-polar molecules. So this noble gases will be the example type. So just mention either molecules or non-polar molecules. In polar molecular solids, polar molecules. In hydrogen bonded molecular solids, polar molecules in which hydrogen is bonded with any of three highest electronegative elements. Or if not, you can write the constituent particles of all the types of molecular solids as molecules as constituent particle. And the attractive force, if it is non-polar, between the two non-polar, it is London forces. Between the polar, dipole. And in a special type of dipole interaction, it will be hydrogen bonds. Hope this classification is clear. So you can expect so both 1 mark and 2 mark question in the classification of crystalline solids will be more easy to remember. So with the crystalline and amorphous, so this can be taken as one simple topic to learn for compulsory 1 mark or 2 mark preparation for your final exam. Now with this, so we'll move on to the next information in the class. Now, after knowing what are solids and what are the classification of solids, now we'll move to understand how the solids will be there. So how the arrangement of particles will be there. How we need to approach towards in understanding its geometrical shape. So all these informations we'll try to focus now. So we'll try to learn with the basic important definitions. So crystal lattice and unit cells. So we'll try to learn first. So what is a crystal lattice? So crystal lattice is also referred to as space lattice. Crystal lattice is also referred to as space lattice. Now, in understanding the structure of solids, so we are assuming the solid particles as hard spheres. We are going to understand the structure of constituent particles. So like this in a hard sphere forms. So we'll try to learn in detail in its 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension arrangement in detail. So like this, we are going to see the constituent particles are arranged in a space. Now, if you take, so the constituent particles in building of any solid, the constituent particle which is building the solid, so it may be an atom. So from atoms the solid is formed, or it may be from the constituent particles as ions, or the constituent particles may be molecules. Atoms, ions or molecules may be the constituent particle in a respective solid. Now, such constituent particles, if it is arranged in a space that is in a three-dimensional arrangement, all those points, so which is showing the orderly arrangement of constituent particles, is regarded as crystal lattice. I repeat, so try to focus clearly. So crystal lattice is a three-dimensional arrangement of the points, so showing the orderly arrangement of constituent particles. It is the three-dimensional arrangement of constituent particles in space. So these constituent particles are represented by points. We're going to indicate a point. So each point in the space, so in representing its three-dimensional structure, it represents a constituent particle, maybe atom, ion, or molecule. The three-dimensional arrangement of points showing the constituent particles in space is called as crystal lattice or space lattice. So we'll try to observe with simple diagrams, and we'll try to draw how a crystal lattice or space lattice looks like. So if we observe such kind of three-dimensional arrangement, so by now, so we know that, so from the famous mathematician, so Bravais, has given 14 different type of such lattices. So Bravais lattices, so which was given by the famous mathematician Bravais. In the honor of that, so we have the lattices are of 14 different types. So 14 Bravais lattices are there. That is 14 possible different three-dimensional arrangement of the points in building the solid, so is known by now. So this will help us so to classify the crystal systems as 7 different crystal systems, so that we'll try to learn. So with the variants, so it forms 14 different types of Bravais lattices. So 14 possible Bravais lattices. So with the 7 crystal system, so we'll try to learn later in the classes. Now we'll try to understand what is this crystal lattice in detail by learning its characteristic features. Now if we understand a crystal lattice with its characteristics, then unit cell we can able to relate it very clearly. Now if we understand the characteristics of a crystal lattice, in a crystal lattice or in a space lattice, we are going to write the points. Now what these points indicates is the first information regarding the characteristic of crystal lattice. Now whatever the crystal lattice, whatever the points we are representing in it, such each point represents a constituent particle. Each point what we are going to represent in a three-dimensional space in learning the respective structure, so it represents constituent particle. So one dot represent one particle. So that constituent particle may be atom or ion or a molecule. So each point in a crystal lattice represents a constituent particle. It may be atom, ion, or a molecule. And such whatever the atom, ion, molecule representing a constituent particle is called as lattice point or lattice site. So it is called as lattice point or lattice site. That is each point, so which represents a constituent particle as atom, ion or molecule in a crystal lattice is called as a lattice point or lattice site. And how these lattice points are present, so that we need to represent in a three-dimensional arrangement. So each lattice points we are going to join by straight lines to bring out the geometry of the lattice. It is each lattice point, whatever we are going to see in building the three-dimensional arrangement. So each lattice points, so they are joined by straight lines. So by doing this, we are going to get a complete geometry of the crystal. So just understand this information, and in the next diagram, you can able to understand this very neatly. So before going to that, so we'll repeat that again. So what is a crystal lattice or space lattice? If we observe, it is a three-dimensional arrangement of points representing the constituent particles in space. So such lattices or crystals are of 14 possible types, so which are called as Bravais lattices, so which are studied as 7 crystal systems. So that we'll try to learn later. Now, if we observe the salient characteristic features of a crystal lattice, in a crystal lattice, so each point, which is called as a lattice point or lattice site, so is representing a constituent particle as atom, ion or molecule. And each such points representing the particle is joined by a straight line to get the geometry of the crystal. Now we'll try to understand how such lattice sites will develop the entire crystal. Now this is a portion of that, so to consider. So just observe now. So this is one constituent particle. This is one constituent particle. This is one constituent particle. Just I am showing a part of that, how it may lead. Now, as we know that in a crystal lattice, each dot or each point is called as a lattice point. Now, this is referred to as lattice site or lattice point. Now, each such lattice site or lattice point represent what? It represents an atom or a molecule or an ion. So each such representative information, what we are going to learn in building the three-dimensional geometry. Such dot represents an atom, a molecule or an ion, which is called as lattice site or lattice point. So such lattice points are joined by straight lines. If you take, assume I am joining these by straight lines. Like this, if we keep on extending to get the information of arrangement, the possible arrangement, we are going to get in the process how a crystal may be built. Hope you are getting the information, how it will be. So assume each corner, what we are going to write it here, so will be with a particle. So you will assume a shape like a cube-like arrangement you are going to see. So if you keep on extending by writing the particles, try to observe it carefully. So what I am writing here, then you can observe the right side diagram. Now each particular lattice sites, however it may be, So just a simple representation I am showing. You can try in all the possible ways. If you keep on joining them through straight lines, so you are going to get a crystal which is built. Now this is what they have represented in the diagram. So this is the NCERT diagram what I have taken exactly. So this is what I have written and shown how it can be formed. So like this, whatever the possible arrangements are there, if you keep on joining through the straight lines, so the entire crystal will be generated. Now, if you observe here, so it is a crystal site, it is a crystal site, it is a lattice point. So each of these particles represents an atom or an ion or a molecule based on the type of the crystalline solid. Now, all such particular crystal points, if it is represented in space or in three-dimensional region, and if all are connected by straight lines, so such a particular part is called as a crystal lattice or a space lattice. So hence we can conclude as, so it is the three-dimensional arrangement of all the constituent particles in space. So that is building a solid. So this is how a representative model to understand how the points will be there. Now, whatever the space you are seeing between the lattice side, it will not be there like this. Actually, this particle so can be represented like this. Assume this is a particle means, so this particle will be like this. Similarly, if this is the particle, that particle will be like this. So this particle will be like this. So like this, there is no space between the particles. So each sphere is in contact with the other. So in that way, the crystal is going to build. Now, for a simple representation, we have written the dots there. So the particles will be like this. The constituent particles in a crystal, only the front side I am writing here, how it will be arranged. So in detail, we are going to learn. So with its ordered arrangement, so from one dimension, three dimension and all. So like this, each particle will be packed to give the rigid structure for the solid. So each sphere will be in contact with other. So for us to understand how the structure will be there, so we are writing the dots as lattice sites or lattice points. So which building the crystal lattice or space lattice. So like this, you can keep on extending the information. So if you write, you can easily understand. And you need to keep on joining that to get the entire crystal lattice of this kind of representations you can extend. So keep on doing that. So try that. So you will get the information of how a crystal lattice or a space lattice can be generated. Hope this is clear. Now this is what the crystal lattice, what we need to know first in understanding the structure. The ordered three-dimensional arrangement of the constituent particles in a space is called as the crystal lattice. Now we'll try to learn what is a unit cell in it. Now we'll try to understand what is a unit cell. Now unit cell, it is the smallest portion in the crystal lattice. It is the smallest portion in a crystal lattice or in a space lattice. Now what this particular information is that it is about the unit cell is that, so which is the smallest portion in a crystal lattice, and if we repeat this particular smallest portion in the several direction or in different direction, the entire crystal we are going to generate. So hence it is the smallest portion in a crystal lattice which when repeated in several direction, which when repeated in several direction or in different direction, generates the entire crystal. So if you understand with the diagram, it will be more easy for you to remember. So first understand what is a unit cell. So a unit cell is the smallest portion in what it is, in a crystal lattice or in a space lattice. And what is the significance of this unit cell? So if it is repeated in different direction, so it has the ability to generate the entire crystal in building its geometry. Now you try to observe here. So I am representing so 4 lattice points. Just observe this. So consider these 4. You assume it as the particles which are towards you. So whatever the phase, if you consider. So consider these 4 particles is behind. So front side and rear side will try to consider. Now between that you try to join. Hope you have tried like this diagram when you are free. I think everyone has tried like this cubes to write. Right? Just imagine that in understanding our unit cell. Now, if we join these particular 8 particles like a cube arrangement, what we are going to get. Now, if you repeat, say for example, if you are repeating this type of cube, assume it above. Hope you are getting it. Just I am representing that how it can be extended. Whatever the cube we had first, so with the same arrangement I have written above. So the same you can write it below. The same you can extend it towards its left hand side, right hand side, and in all the possible directions. Now I am representing one more here. Now this is look like one more unit cell which is extended towards this side. Similarly, we'll assume we are extending one more unit cell towards this side. Now this is one more unit cell. Now with the help of one unit cell, I have repeated that in 3 unit cells in 3 directions. Similarly, I can extend towards this side. I can extend towards this side. And I can extend towards this side. So if we keep on representing in the respective X, Y, Z coordinate, so if we keep on building, so the entire crystal will be generated. So hence, so this is what we are speaking as the unit cell. So unit cell is the smallest portion, so which when repeated in several directions, if you observe this smallest portion, so which is in pink color shaded box, so if this is repeated in several directions, so it is going to generate the entire crystal. So how I have shown like this. So if you keep on repeating in several directions, the entire crystal will be generated. So such a smallest portion which has the ability to build a crystal, if we repeat in several directions, is called as unit cells. So that is our main concept in understanding the structure. If we know what is the unit cell and what is the characteristics of the unit cell, it is easy for us to learn the solids structure in a very easy manner. Hope this is clear. A unit cell is the smallest portion of a crystal lattice or a space lattice, which when repeated in several directions or in different directions, so is going to generate the entire crystal. Now, if we take such a unit cell now, so we'll try to learn the simple characteristic features of unit cell. So if we take any unit cell, so it is characterized by 6 important characteristics. So they are 3 edge lengths and 3 axial angles. Each unit cell is characterized by 6 important parameters or characteristics. So there are three edge lengths and three axial angles. That means, so if you take, so this is one edge A, this is another edge B, and this is another edge C, A, B, C. The three edges, the same it will be repeated in building the entire crystal. Now, the angle opposite to the edge A is called as alpha. The angle opposite to the edge B is called as beta, and the angle opposite to C is gamma. So these are axial angles. So three edge lengths are A, B, C will be the edge length. So in the diagram here, this is one edge. So this is the edge B and this is the edge C. Angle opposite to edge A is alpha. Angle opposite to edge B is beta. Angle opposite to edge C is gamma. If you take here, it will be like same. So this will be A, this will be B, this will be C, or this will be C, this will be B, this will be A. Or if you take here again the same, if you take here again the same, that is the three coordinates what you are going to observe to represent in the space. So that three are important. So here A, B, C edges, if we take, either it may be same, or A is equal to B, B is not equal to C, or A is not equal to B is not equal to C, or A is equal to B, B is not equal to C, or A is not equal to B, or B is equal to C. Like that, the edge lengths may differ from one unit cell to another unit cell. Like this, there are more possibilities of getting different types of unit cells. Similarly, the angles, so they may be mutually perpendicular, that is alpha is equal to beta is equal to gamma is equal to 90 degree, or alpha is not equal to beta is not equal to gamma is not equal to 90 degree, or two may be equal to 90 degree, one may be more than 90 degree or less than 90 degree, like this. So again, the axial angles may change, edge lengths may remain same or may be different. So all these variants are giving our seven main crystal systems as cubic, rhombohedral, tetragonal, orthorhombic, monoclinic, hexagonal, rhombohedral, triclinic. Like this, there are seven crystal names, so that we'll try to continue when we are looking in detail in our next class. So you just focus in the present class. So what is a crystal lattice? What is a unit cell? And so what are the characteristic features of that? And what are the types of unit cell? In detail classification we'll learn later in the next class. Hope this is clear. So each unit cell is characterized by six parameters. There are three edge lengths and three axial angles. Now, based on this information, so and the constituent particle. Now, if you consider here, so this will be having one particle like this. This edge is one particle. This edge will have one more particle. So what I am speaking is this is one edge, this is one edge. And with respect to this edge, there will be one particle like this. It is arranged. And for this, there will be one particle will be arranged. So like this, you are going to see the arrangement of constituent particles. Now, based on this kind of arrangement, how unit cells are classified, we'll try to learn now. It is the types of unit cells. So we have two main types of unit cells. They are primitive unit cells and centered unit cells. So primitive unit cells are those which will have particles only at corners of the cube, as we are representing the unit cell as a cubic arrangement. So if the particles are present only at corners, so then we can say it as a primitive unit cell. So centered unit cells are those, so along with the corner particles, in addition to corner particles, there will be particles seen additionally. Based on the location of that, we have the centered unit cells as of three types: body centered unit cell, face centered unit cell, end centered unit cell. So if I write the unit cell with a structure, you may be easily understand it. So the body centered unit cell, so along with the corner particle, the additional particle, it will have one particle at its body center. In the face centered, along with the corner particles, it will have particles at each face center. So you can imagine if you take a cube, so cube will have 6 faces. So in all the 6 phases, at each center of the face, you will have a particle in the case of face-centered unit cell. In the end-centered unit cell, along with the corner particle, you will see the particles at opposite face centers. That means if you take above plane, below face, above, below, or any side faces. So if I represent a structure, it will be more clear for you. Now, primitive unit cells are those so which will have particles only at corners. So apart from corner particles, you will not find any other particles in the solid. Now this is a simple primitive unit cell. So if you observe this structure, so you can see that there is particle seen only at the corners. Apart from corners, there is no other particle. Whereas if you take, so BCC, FCC, ECC, end-centered cubic system. So if we consider the body-centered cubic system, so first we'll write a simple primitive unit cell. Primitive unit cell is also called a simple unit cell. So simple or primitive unit cell is the one so which is having the particles only at the corners. Apart from corner particles, there is no other additional particles. Now this is one simple primitive unit cell. Now to consider this as BCC, there is a particle at the center of the unit cell. Body centered unit cell will have additional particle at the center of the body, that is its unit cell. Whereas face centered, if we take, so please try to observe the diagrams carefully. So without the help of that, it is very difficult for you to follow the class. Now again, try to write a simple primitive unit cell. Then you try to extend it for remembering the face-centered unit cell. Now if you take this, a simple primitive unit cell, so just I will use a different color for you to indicate how it will be. Now this is one face, assume. So in the center of this face, so I am writing a particle. So behind this, assume this is one face. So at the center of that face, I am writing a particle. So this side, face centered, and towards this side, a face centered, above face centered, below face centered, I am writing a particle. Now, just this dotted lines, you consider the opposite faces. A three-dimensional arrangement you try to remember. So this is above plane, below plane. So front side, rear side, and the side faces like that you remember. In each phases you are going to see there are 6 faces in a unit cell, and a particle is seen at each face center. At each face center, you are going to observe an additional particle. Now this will be forming FCC, so face centered unit cell. Now, if we take the end-centered unit cell, again to understand the end-centered unit cell, so first write a simple primitive unit cell. We know that. So in the simple primitive unit cell, the particle will be only at corners. So its contribution, the participation, everything information we'll learn in the next classes. In this class, you just focus to understand each information clearly. Now this is a simple primitive unit cell. Now to understand it as end-centered unit cell. Now in end-centered unit cell, there is additional particle seen at opposite phase center. Now try to assume any two opposite phases. Now I will take this one, above and below. Now between this above phase and below phase, at the center of each phase of this opposite phase, so we are going to see the particle. It is opposite phase center. So I have written only one opposite phase. You may take this, or you may take this front side and back side, so like that. So any of the two opposite one you can take, and in the face centered, if the particle is present, then it is called as end centered unit cell. A simple primitive unit cell will have particles only at corner, whereas body centered will have corner particle along with that additional one particle at the body center. Here corner particles, and at each 6 phase center there will be particles. Here corner particles, and any two opposite phase center will have the particles. So this will be the respective types of the unit cell. Simple primitive unit cell, centered unit cells as body centered, phase centered, end centered. So with the additional information of the 7 crystal systems, how the edge length, axial angles are helpful in classifying the 7 crystal system. So to form the 14 Bravais lattices, along with that, we'll try to learn the particle calculation and the arrangement of building the crystal as 1 dimension, 2 dimension, and 3 dimension. We'll try to take up with the coming class. Thank you.